Ouija boards, they are said to make spirit communication possible and open portals to the afterlife. Now, whether you believe in them or not, there are countless stories of people messing around with them and seemingly having very bad outcomes. So here are 5 cases where that very thing has happened. Let's start with Angela Jackson, a mum of 2 who had a terrifying encounter after playing with an Ouija board. She had always been interested in paranormal things and always wanted to try an Ouija board, but during a clairvoyant show, Angela's dad, who had passed away 20 years ago, apparently came through and told Angela that he knew she was thinking about trying one and told her not to do so, as no good would come from it. One night, Angela's neighbours invited her over for drinks, and it wasn't before long they brought out a makeshift Ouija board and, despite her dad's warning, started using it. They all placed their fingers lightly on an upturned whiskey glass they'd placed on the board, and it began to pull in every direction. Robert, who was taking part, asked, "Who is it you want to speak to?" and the glass spelled out Angela. Then, all of a sudden, it spelled out die. The Ouija board then said, "I was murdered, just like you're going to be." Angela then asked, "Who are you?" and the glass quickly spelled out Satan. She then screamed, "I'm not scared," moments before the tumbler flew off the table and smashed into the wall. At the same time, the living room door slammed shut on its own. Shortly after the event, Angela woke up screaming and sweating from a terrible nightmare. She dreamt she was being attacked by a male apparition carrying a hammer. When walking to a friend's house, she heard a voice say "die," and as she turned, there was a man emerging from the shadows wielding a claw hammer. She screamed as he attacked her with the weapon. After the attack, Angela made a recovery after suffering a fractured skull, and to this day there is no trace of her attacker and no reason why he attacked her in the first place. Angela strongly believes it is linked to a Ouija board session and said if she had have listened to her dad's warning, maybe none of this would have happened. Jessica and her best friends decided to try an Ouija board one night as they didn't think it was going to work. They made a makeshift board using some paper and used a regular drinking glass as a pointer. At first nothing much happened, but eventually the pointer started moving extremely fast and they could hardly keep their fingers on it. It started spelling out names and words without them even asking questions. It spelled out the words murder and lust, and soon after, Jessica decided to stop the session as they were by now getting freaked out. After that, everything went back to normal, but Jessica started waking up at 3 AM every night with an unexplained feeling of dread, which had never happened before. One night, whilst walking up the road, Jessica and her friend claimed they saw a black figure of a man leaning on a fence staring at them outside what was the haunted house of their neighbourhood. That very night, Jessica woke up to the feeling of being pinned face down on her bed by what felt like a strong man. She was unable to move or scream and swears he muttered something in her ear, but she doesn't know what is said. A few days after the event, her grandma, who claims to be very perceptive to the paranormal, came in and said she and Jessica's mum felt there was a presence in the house. As they were discussing this feeling of dark in their home, Jessica began to get the same dreadful feeling she had been having every night since the Ouija board session, but this time it was getting worse. She said she felt as though she was being pulled into a tunnel further and further away from the room she was in. When Jessica tried to tell her mum she didn't feel right, she couldn't talk or move, and felt as though something was trying to control her. She finally managed to scream, "There's something wrong with me," but the next thing she knew, her sister was beside her hugging her, and she was crying and shaking uncontrollably. They immediately got a priest in to bless the house, and while he was doing so, all the pipes in the house made a huge screaming noise. After he had blessed the house, everything went back to normal. Jessica believes the Ouija board stirred up something dark that cannot be explained. Now, this is an unusual story, but in 1935, Mrs. Neil Hurd was dabbling with an Ouija board in her Kansas City home. Now, it's unsure why she started using it, but nonetheless, when she started playing, the spirit she was apparently communicating with was telling her some dark secrets about her 77-year-old husband, Herbert. It told her that Herbert was having an affair with the wife of their neighbour, and that he had $15,000 worth of cash buried nearby. Nellie began using the Ouija board frequently and was convinced by it that her husband was having the affair. The spirit told her that she must torture him in order to find the truth. Needless to say, she hit Herbert over the head with a gun and tied his hands and feet to the bed. She beat him unmercifully with a knotted rope, seared him with a hot iron and poked him with a knife, all whilst demanding he revealed the treasure. Eventually, he made a false confession and told her he was having an affair and he had dug up the money and given it to the other woman. Despite this, the Ouija board kept telling her to torture poor Herbert, and in desperation, he took one of her pistols and shot her dead. Now, many paranormal believers say that a dark demon was tricking Mrs. Hurd into torturing her innocent husband, and would have likely told her to kill him if he hadn't managed to kill her first. This next story happened around 2002 in Potsdam, Germany. 11-year-old Jeanette's older sister, of course, decided to makeshift and try an Ouija board. Jeanette's mother had an Ouija board experience when she was younger and was fine with letting her daughter try out an Ouija board. So the mother took Jeanette and her brother into the kitchen to let her daughter get on with the Ouija board session. They waited for some time in there, and as a few minutes passed, Jeanette saw a person walk past one of the room's glass doors. She knew it wasn't her sister or her sister's two friends who were conducting the Ouija board session, and couldn't think who else it would be. The pitch black figure could only have come from the living room and seemingly was heading for the exit. She brushed it off as she believed her mind was playing tricks on her. Then, all of a sudden, her little brother asked, "Did you see that shadow too?" She was shocked and now knew it wasn't her mind playing tricks. Jeanette's sister finished her Ouija board session and nothing bad happened during it, but shortly after, strange things started happening around the family home. It started with lights switching on by themselves, figures appearing around the house, knocks on doors, random footsteps, cold spots and slamming of doors when no breeze was around. A foul smell similar to that which is said to be linked with paranormal beings could also be smelled around the home. Despite moving homes, the strange occurrences continued, which make you wonder, did Jeanette's sister welcome a paranormal being into their home whilst conducting the Ouija board session, and was this what the black figure was? Now, as always, I've saved the best for last, and when it comes to Ouija board stories, it doesn't get much scarier than the Roland Doe case. Roland's case was actually the inspiration behind the Exorcist movie, and it all started with Roland's auntie, who was an avid Ouija board user and encouraged him to use it, but he never got around to doing so until his aunt died in the late 1940s, when Roland was just 13. He began using the Ouija board in an attempt to contact her, an act which was said to open the doors for the demon who wished to possess him. The possession started with strange sounds like dripping water that no one could place. Eventually, religious artifacts began to quake and fly off the walls, and unexplained footsteps and scratching noises could be heard around Roland's family home. But if scratches on the walls wasn't bad enough, they began to appear on the boy's body, including words that seemed to have been carved into his flesh by unseen claws. His family could take no more and contacted Reverend Luther Schultz. Reverend Schultz put the boy in for medical and psychiatric tests to try and find out if Roland was suffering from any medical conditions. After finding no medical explanation for these disturbing events, Roland was to spend the night in Luther's home in order to be observed by him. He allegedly witnessed some strange events. A heavy armchair in which the boy sat on seemingly tilted on its own and tipped over. Schultz concluded that there was evil at work, and a Lutheran rite of exorcism was to be immediately carried out on possessed Roland. After an excruciating exorcism which took multiple rituals and caused the priests involved many injuries, the devil was said to be banished from the boy's fragile body, but Roland was left with the mental scars of what had happened. Thankfully though, Roland now happily lives out his life with his family, never to speak of the event again. Many people consider the Ouija board nothing more than a toy, and that it's simply an ideomotor response that makes the Ouija board appear to move, and others believe that the board has the ability to accurately predict the future and can harbour terrible and evil forces. Regardless of your views, please be considerate towards others, and don't forget to share any experiences you may have had using one. Thanks for watching, and see you next week for another video.